Welcome into the Blackhawks Breakaway Podcast on CHSN with the nicely dressed Charlie Roumeliotis. I am Pat Boyle. We are brought to you by Toyota. Toyota has more all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicles than any other brand. Find yours and shine on. Toyota, let's go places. Charlie's at the United Center after one of the most frustrating performances I've watched, and there have been a slew of them this year. Charlie, if Kyle Davidson let the Hawks have it after their performance in the Winter Classic in a 6-2 loss to the Blues, he could have rinsed and repeated that same speech. I thought this performance was inexcusable against a team that had lost 16 of 21 coming in, including played yesterday, had a goalie who hadn't started in over a year. And to use Connor Bedard's comment, they got dog walked in the Winter Classic. I thought they got dog walked again today. I was thoroughly disappointed with the effort and the energy.
Very disappointing, especially given the comments after Friday's game against Montreal, specifically from Blackhawks captain Nick Foligno. He said it to Darren Pang in the on-ice interview when he was named the #1 star, and then he said it after the game saying, we want to turn the page on 2024 and play a brand of hockey that Chicago fans can be proud of. And for them to follow up that performance with the effort that they did against the New York Rangers was extremely disappointing because, like you mentioned, Pat, this wasn't the Colorado Avalanche coming to town playing on the second of a back-to-back. This is the New York Rangers that have been, quite frankly, a laughingstock within the league just with all the headlines they've made this season coming off the President's Trophy last year. Extremely, just a mentally fragile group right now as a team. And for the Blackhawks not to be able to capitalize, and not just the fact that they lost, it was self-inflicted wounds that cost the Blackhawks. This wasn't the Rangers dominating play.
Okay, I will give you the first few goals that the Rangers had were self-inflicted. I can from let's go through them. First of all, Hawks got on the board first. It was nice that Mikheyev and Bedard teamed up on a takeaway. Bedard went backdoor to Bertuzzi. He scored his 14th goal in his usual genuflect position. Nice redirection. Okay. 25th time, by the way, that they've scored first in 40 games, but really have nothing to show for it. So let's go. First Rangers goal off a face-off loss. Another major issue with this team all season long is the lack of production at the face-off circle. And, when you win 43% of the draws all season long, you're usually not starting with the puck. So they lost a face-off there. There was a wrister through traffic. That was the first goal. The second goal, two opportunities to clear the D zone. The first one was Craig Smith. Smith turned it over, and on a horrible pass, bad decision, Zibanejad jumps it. And then a couple seconds later, Maroon sends one up the wall, cannot connect with, I believe, Donato. And it was picked off, and Will Borgen, his wrister, was the second goal. The third one was poor D-zone coverage. And then the fourth one was they had been hemmed. That's where this game felt like the Rangers, from about the midway point of the first period, all of the second and all of the third, were on a power play. They would work the cycle. They had puck possession all afternoon long, and the Hawks were just watching and showing very little fight to win puck battles. I felt like the Rangers completely controlled play from the second period on.
Yeah, and that's fair. And I think what I meant by the self-inflicted wounds were the first two goals specifically. Yeah. Like even obviously they lose the face-off that directly leads to the goal. But it was the play that happened right before that. I mean, Teravainen is right on the center ice, and he just dumps the puck in, and all he has to do is wait a few more feet to dump that puck in, and it's not an icing. And so that part felt
and that's
self-inflicted.
a veteran that you brought back thinking that he won't make those types of mistakes.
Right,
you know?
right. And so, you look at the start of the game, Hawks it was 3-0 in shots in favor of Chicago. And then they get up 1-0. You're like, all right, things are looking great. Really good first 5 minutes or so. And then the rest of that first period, shots on goal were 14-3 in favor of the Rangers. And then they, of course, took the 2-1 lead going into the second period. And I think from the second period and on, for sure, the Rangers it was all Rangers. But if it weren't for the mistakes of the Blackhawks that led to the kind of momentum that the Rangers had, that's the disappointing part for me. And that's now.
Yeah, but you should be able to overcome some mistakes. Like, again, like mental error on Tabo there, for sure. Lose the draw. Okay, it happens. Ends up in the back of the net. First of all, I didn't think Soderblom was fantastic. He was fantastic on Friday against Montreal. And that's the other thing, it took a unbelievable goalie performance on Friday to beat Montreal. That second period, he stopped 19 shots and at least 5 were grade A variety. And,
right.
So you kind of like, you breathe a sigh of relief there because you came out with a victory against a team that was hot in Montreal. But you also realize that it took a really outstanding goaltending performance from Arvid to end that 5-game skid. And then you've got this turmoil team coming to town, rumors about their coach being fired, rumors about the core being changed. The GM is on a rampage, and they lose again yesterday, 7-4. And you're like, all right, this is a team. This is where you can begin to build some momentums, stack some wins, no excuses. You're not the team coming in having played the night. I heard the guys like, well, sometimes it's hard to get going for afternoon games. Come on, like. It was 2:00 in the afternoon. You usually practice at 11 or 11:30 in the morning. Like, whatever. I mean, I don't know, man. I'd like to give this team the benefit of the doubt, but they don't deserve the benefit of the doubt. Like there's one thing. You can make mental mistakes. You can make whatever. But lack of energy against a team that had played the night before or the afternoon before, that's inexcusable in my book, Charlie.
Yeah, and I know you have every right to feel worked up because I think the Blackhawks fan that is listening to you right now is saying amen because they are tired of kind of you have a big win against Montreal and they're talking about let's be better in 2025 and let's try to play a brand of hockey that fans are proud of. And then you come out with that and it's like, okay, now they get knocked down again. And so psychologically now you have to pick yourself up off the mat and try to string together win. I mean, just this team has really struggled to stack wins for the last couple seasons. And so it's really frustrating when you feel like you play a good game and then you can't capitalize on it right after. You mentioned the goaltending, and it's been a real area of weakness for Chicago, honestly, ever since Anders Sorensen took over, which has been really bizarre because there have been strides. Like I think the shots on goal against are down under Sorensen. Like there are areas of improvement for the Blackhawks. Not saying, obviously you look at some of these losses. This is the 4th time in the last 5 games the Blackhawks have lost by a 4+ goal margin. So you look at the results and you're not satisfied with it. But you can see some improvements metrically. But, man, this team has really gotten not great goaltending over the last few weeks here. I think I said it after the game last against Montreal is under Luke Richardson, the Blackhawks had like the 12th best save percentage in the NHL. And right now they're 31st in the NHL under Sorensen. And so they need to find a way to just get back to average-ish goaltending because this team is not a team that can overcome bottom 3 goaltending right now. It's just not.
No. And it really coincides. It coincides with the coaching change, but it coincides with Mrazek's injury and then having to lean on Soderblom throughout it. And I think the actual work caught up to Arvid a little bit. And then you had Peter return, and after being off for 5 weeks or whatever it was, noticeable rust, and and not a lot of help in front of them. Outdoor game, you got problems tracking pucks. You talk about the blowouts in 4 of the last 5. You know what the common denominator in all that is? National TV. Blown out against Buffalo, blown out against Dallas, blown out 6-2 Winter Classic against St. Louis. They beat Montreal on CHSN, and then they get dog walked by the Rangers on ABC today. So the natural solution is more games on CHSN.
That's exactly where I was going. And unfortunately, Pat, is it Wednesday's game against Colorado National?
It's on TNT, Charlie.
All right.
You're doing the broadcast. So I was watching the game on ABC today, and we talk about making the most of opportunities. They're being laughed at by the studio. It's the 32nd team in the NHL is getting blown out by the 27th ranked team in the National Hockey League. The most exciting thing was Butchergrass showing his chicken parms during the second intermission, because the product was bad. It was like, to me, I kept saying, this is week 18 of the National Football League, and teams that aren't playing for anything, the joke is, they get together on the field before the game, 1, 2, 3, Cancun. They're already gone, checked out. I felt like the second and third period, I felt like this was week 18, and you're mired in a 10-game losing skid like the Bears, and your head was already in Cabo. I just don't. And you're there, the fans are waiting for something to grasp onto. Congrats to Wyatt Kaiser getting his first NHL marker. I thought it was nice to see Colton Dach get bumped up to the Bedard line. But dude, there's just not. I mean, what do you hang your hat on from this one?
Yeah. To be fair, DJ Moore's head was in Cabo about 4 weeks ago, so I just wanted to mark that.
Touche.
I know, and it's difficult, Pat, because all these games are happening around the holidays where fans are flying in. The United Centers have been packed the last few games. The Winter Classic was an unbelievable spectacle. And again, it's not that they lost, it's the way they've lost, where it's like these games feel over in the second period, and all these fans that have come in home for the holidays don't have much to show for it. And it's just, it hasn't been an exciting brand of hockey that the Blackhawks are playing. Connor Bedard's on a 7-game point streak, but I didn't really notice him in this game. He only had 1 shot attempt, 0 shots on goal for the 4th time this season. I mean, he did connect with Tyler Bertuzzi again, and that duo has been largely, if you exclude this game, has largely been awesome over the last couple weeks. But really the only I was thinking about the Friday game. I thought Colton Dach was awesome, where he injects this team exactly what it needed. 5 shots on goal, 5 hits. I mean, the mentality he had, he didn't look timid at all. And so you're like, okay, this is a player. This is kind of somebody they need right now.
Yeah, look, I bring up Slaggert, bring up more of these guys, because look, I know there's going to be some guys that get moved before the deadline, and I mean, it can't get much worse than this, really. I mean, we thought when we spoke to Jason Dickinson last Thursday before the Montreal game, I was like, oh my God, I wanted to lay down on a couch. I was like, how are they going to, what is going on here? And then they, put together 4-2 win over a hot team. And you're like, okay, that's a nice way to answer a really discouraging performance on the biggest National Hockey League regular season stage. Like, okay, all right, guys. And then, you get everything kind of like lined up your way for a Sunday game against a team that is lost 16 of 21 and had played the day before, and they're starting a goalie who hadn't started since November of 2023. What in the hell is going on? Like, I wish we would have done a podcast on Friday because, I was feeling, whatever. There hasn't been many bright spots. So, Dach brought some life to the lineup. Foligno got on the board a couple of times. It was nice for a home victory. But then to see it this way, like, again, if they lose today's game by a goal or two, but they put in an honest effort, I'm not – my tone is not like this. It's the fact that too many times Nick Foligno has had that same press conference, and I'm not pointing finger at him. He's just telling it like he sees it. But, like, sweet Jesus, what are we going to do here? I just don't – so I like what do you – like, because Wednesday's not – I mean, I don't know. Wednesday's another nationally televised game.
Yeah, and it's against – well, to be fair, we thought the last time they were in Colorado, we're like, this is going to end poorly, and then the Hawks found a way to win.
Yeah.
And the same thing happened in Edmonton, the third game of the season, where we're like, oh, boy, this isn't going to go well, and then the Hawks found a way to win. So not saying it's going to go like that because Colorado has been playing much better hockey as of late. But, yeah, the passion is noted, and I think that fans are sharing similar feelings of what you're feeling. By the way, so we're doing this after the game at the United Center, and I was looking at the Rockford score. Joey Anderson had a hat trick for the Rockford Ice Hawks today. So it's like, man, where was that? Where was that here? Some of the guys, that the Blackhawks have had here. And okay, so I understand, bring up Slaggert, bring up some of these young guys. I think Slaggert actually is not a bad idea because he's the kind of guy where he spent 4 years at Notre Dame, so he's not like a 19, 20-year-old where he's finding his way. He's kind of a more mature ahead of the curve. If you're looking at Rockford and you want some of those types of players, I don't fault anyone for thinking that. And also, at one point, I have to caution myself too because I don't want to over-index the other way where we're impacting the development of those younger players. But at the same time, how much do you want that injection of youth that know that they have an opportunity to be here for the long term? And maybe that's something where you're going to see some of the energy type moments from them versus guys that might be here and on a temporary, short-term basis, knowing that they're kind of the bridge to the next wave of Blackhawks. So I'm not sure. It's tough. I think
I know where you're getting at because Frank Nazar had so much success this season at the AHL level. And we haven't necessarily seen that production, obviously, here at the National Hockey League level. But there's a lot I like about his game. It's actually the way you play and go about it. It was like what Colton brought to the game on Friday, right? 5 hits, 5 shots on goal, standing in front of the net, screening, taking eyes away. It's the way they play. I like what Landon Slaggert brought last year in his brief time with the Hawks. I look at him kind of cut from that Brandon Hagel-esque cloth, where he just does a lot of things the right way. And give me some guys that are playing hard the right way, and I'll take a lack of production. I just want to see the game play the right way.
Yeah, I feel you. And this, I think it's a reason why I was so cautious about wanting the Blackhawks to bring up Frank Nazar too early rather than too late is because, you look at the situation now and it's not fun probably for a lot of the guys to be coming to the rink. And so it's easy for that mood to rub off on some of those young guys, even though they're here and they're excited. They're playing NHL games. Like I'm sure Colton Dach is kind of over the moon that he's here in the NHL. But on some cases too, like Frank Nazar's not getting as many puck touches. There are a lot of you'd almost rather they work through that down in Rockford and not subject them to the NHL and not getting puck touches and the negativity that could surround this Blackhawks team as things spiral the wrong way. But at the same time, I see your point too, where you're like, the type of energy that the Blackhawks need right now might have to come from some of their younger players, because they know this is an opportunity for them to showcase their talents to be on the Blackhawks in the long term. And so it's this really fine line that I'm sure Kyle Davidson and the management group is trying to walk, but you kind of have to take it on an individual basis. And so if the Hawks are kind of figuring out, how do we inject some life into this group? What do we got to do? I don't mind if Leonard Slaggert is the next guy up. I just would caution calling up too many guys at once.
I was targeting him only because of the way he plays the game. And I think there's not enough of that right now on this team. And I'm not asking for miracle workers right now. I'm looking for, some consistency. Stack 2 games together. Any other? I mean, I know you had. It's funny, the topics you had texted, it had to be early in the game because it was like, is it time to give Soderblom more of a starting workload? I think they're riding the hot hand, so to speak. He played fantastic against Montreal. He got another start this afternoon, and I thought he was just okay, but not great.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that I'm not really ready to lean one way or another. Like, Arvid should be getting a majority of the starts moving forward. I mean, at this point, both goaltenders are struggling mightily if you eliminate the Montreal game for Arvid. And it's like, you have to ride the hot hand at that point, because if it's different if you had, like I've seen the NHL today, like Washington Capitals, they came through here a couple weeks ago, and I was looking at their goalie rotation. It was like Logan Thompson, Charlie Lindgren, and it's like every single game they alternate. It's like you, no matter what the performance is. The Hawks it's crazy, Pat. They were getting great goaltending from Mrazek and Soderblom at the same time at the beginning of the season. Now they're getting poor goaltending from both of them at the same time. So it's kind of like whichever guy has the net and plays well, that goaltender should start the next game if it's not a back-to-back.
And part of it too, Charlie, is the guys in front of them. I mean, it's not all goaltending. There's a lot of shots that are getting through from the point, that are getting redirected, that should be blocked. So it's a combo on that. And puck management was brutal against the Rangers. They had, I think, 17 giveaways. The Hawks had 17 giveaways. They had 10 through the first 40 minutes. It was what they barely had the puck, and when they did, they were turnover machines. It was just And now they're off on Monday, and they'll have a practice on Tuesday, and they'll get back at it Wednesday. It's an early start, so if you're going to the United Center, I think it's a 6:30 start, and that game will be on TNT.
Yeah, the puck management was not great against the Rangers. Decision-making was not great. The other area that I didn't notice as much as I did, not nearly as much as I did in the Friday Montreal game, was the physicality. I mean, there were so many hits in that Canadiens game that you're like, all right, Hawks were coming off that 5-game losing streak, that Winter Classic debacle. Jason Dickinson had the strong comments about just kind of he was running out of answers for this, how things have spiraled. And so you looked at that game and you're like, Dickinson laid 2 early hits in that Montreal game. Wyatt Kaiser stood up. And
everybody talked about those afterwards too. They talked about that first shift from Dickinson, how that set the tone for the game.
Yep. Yeah. And Pat Maroon drops the gloves. And so you're like, all right, the veterans that are leading this charge, Dickinson, Maroon, Foligno had 2 goals. You're like, they channeled the emotion the right way. Even Colton Dach, like he came up here and he was like, all right, I know what my role is. Be power forward, go to the dirty areas, lay some big hits. And so I did not see that kind of same energy against the Rangers. looking at the hit total, I think the Hawks, I can't remember what it was. I think 16 or something.
Hits.
Yeah. And it was like, oh, I don't even remember many of them. So, the Montreal game, I was like, Hawks had 22 hits. And it was like, well, I remember every single one of those hits. Like they were noticeable. And so that's also the difference that I saw Montreal versus the New York game.
Any other things you want to touch on? I know we kind of glossed over the Friday game, but we've mentioned it. You talked about the guys, the leaders answering the bell, leading the way. It also helped that they had some power plays. They had that 5-on-3 where Bertuzzi, the Hawks are now 5 of 9 on 5-on-3s this year. So
that's a great stat.
But again, they only had one power play Sunday afternoon, and the Rangers didn't have any.
Yeah, I said
to me, when you don't draw penalties, that's another sign of workload. How hard you're working.
For sure. Like they only having one power play against the Rangers, like they didn't even earn another power play after that. Like there was no opportunity where I'm like, oh, yep, that was a missed call. It's like you got to play hard the right way, and so. Unfortunately, Pat, it feels like we do these podcasts when we catch them on the tail end of their losing streaks and never after like their wins. So it's like, man, it's been frustrating trying to talk about this.
I'm telling you, more games on CHSN. This national stretch has not gone their way. By the way, great job, John Weideman, Troy Murray, and yourself on the WGN radio coverage. You guys bring the energy, bring the laughs, and bring the action each and every game, and it's very much appreciated by the Blackhawks fan base.
Thank you. It's honestly been so fun to work with John and Troy, and there have been a lot of post games this year where Troy and I are just kind of getting off the rails because we don't really want to talk about what happened in the game, and so
I heard you were a dash. You were a little bit of a -4, and Troy was calling you out.
I was a -4 because in the pregame show, I think I said the word tonight 3 times, and then my big error in the postgame show was I said this was the second time all season the Blackhawks had 0 power plays, and John and Troy look at me and they're like, one Charlie, and I'm like, oh yeah, they did have one at 63 seconds into the game, or 73, whatever it was. So that's definitely a dash on me, but it's been great to work with both of them.
All right, back in action Wednesday. When do you have your is your radio show tomorrow night? Monday?
Yep, got a radio show Monday night. I wonder what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, and I've got I'm going to be doing ESPN 1000's The Hockey Show on Wednesday night during the third period, and a fired up Barstool Chief is probably going to have some things to say. So that will be going on as well. All right, that is going to do it for the Blackhawks Breakaway Podcast on CHSN, brought to you by Toyota. For Charlie Roumeliotis, I'm Pat Boyle. Thank you for watching and listening, and we'll catch you